You thought Windows 11 tracking was bad with Recall taking screenshots of everything you do. You thought the telemetry was invasive, collecting data on every application you open. Now there's something worse. Way worse. Microsoft's newsfeed integration in Windows 11 is tracking your mouse movements in real time. Every pixel your cursor crosses, every hesitation, every click pattern, every moment you hover over something without clicking, all of it logged, analyzed, transmitted to Microsoft servers, and sold to advertisers. This isn't speculation. Security researchers found the code. Users discovered the network traffic, Microsoft got caught. And if you think you can just disable the newsfeed, think again. The tracking continues even when the widget is closed, even when you think you opted out. Your mouse is being watched right now, and Microsoft is profiting from it. If this doesn't make you want to know the full story, I don't know what will. Subscribe right now, because what I'm about to show you will change how you see every computer you own. The discovery happened 3 weeks ago. Thomas Rodriguez is a cybersecurity analyst in Denver specializing in network traffic analysis. In February 2025, his firm upgraded 200 workstations to Windows 11. Within 48 hours, Thomas notices unusual traffic patterns, constant data transmission to Microsoft domains, small packets, high frequency, every few seconds. The volume didn't match normal telemetry patterns. He starts deep packet inspection. The traffic is encrypted, but he can see the metadata. Source: News Experience host.exe, the news and widgets feed. He isolates one workstation and sets up monitoring, opens the news widget. Immediately, data transmission begins. He moves the mouse. The transmission rate increases. He holds still. The rate decreases. He moves it again in a circular pattern. The packet timing matches his movement exactly. The news feed is tracking mouse movements in real time and sending coordinates to Microsoft servers. Not just when you interact with the widget, all the time. Even with the widget closed, your mouse position gets logged, timestamped, transmitted. He documents everything and posts it on GitHub. It goes viral in 48 hours. Microsoft's response: silence. No statement, no denial, no explanation. Because they got caught doing exactly what the research showed. Within days, other researchers replicate the findings. University computer science departments, independent security firms, everyone confirms it. Sarah Nakamura is a reverse engineer in Tokyo. She downloads News Experience host.exe and loads it into Ghidra. What she finds is terrifying. The executable contains functions that log mouse position at 50 millisecond intervals. That's 20 times per second. But there's more. It logs velocity, how fast your mouse is moving. It logs acceleration. It logs dwell time, how long your cursor hovers over specific screen regions. It logs click patterns, the timing between clicks, the pressure if you're using a touch screen, the scroll wheel velocity and direction. Every possible metric about how you move your mouse. Sarah exports the functions and publishes a detailed breakdown. The code is clear. This isn't accidental logging for debugging. This is intentional behavior tracking. The functions are optimized, efficient, designed to run continuously with minimal performance impact. The code even has internal comments. One says, engagement tracking for personalized content delivery. Another, user attention heat map generation. Microsoft calls it engagement. Privacy advocates call it surveillance. Your mouse movements create a behavioral profile. Where you look, what interests you, what you ignore. And Microsoft is collecting all of it without informed consent. Here's where it gets worse. The data isn't just going to Microsoft. Michael Park is a data privacy lawyer in San Francisco. He files a CCPA request with Microsoft. Under California law, companies must disclose what data they collect and who they share it with. Microsoft sends a 47-page PDF. Buried on page 34, Interaction Data Sharing Partners. The list includes 23 companies: advertising networks, Google Ads, Facebook Meta Audience Network, Amazon Advertising, data brokers, Axiom, Experian, Oracle, Data Cloud, analytics firms, Nielsen, Comscore, Quantcast. Microsoft isn't just collecting your mouse movement data. They're selling it to the entire advertising ecosystem. Michael estimates each user's data is worth $15 to $30 per month to advertisers. Windows 11 has 400 million active users. If even half have the newsfeed enabled, that's 200 million users. At $20 per user per month, that's $4 billion per month, $48 billion per year. Microsoft's entire Windows division revenue is $23 billion per year. Mouse tracking could double their Windows revenue. That's why they built it. That's why they hid it. That's why they won't remove it. The profit potential is too massive. Lisa Chen is a UX designer in Seattle who's worked for major tech companies for 15 years. When she reads about the mouse tracking, she immediately understands the implications beyond advertising. This data reveals everything about how humans think and make decisions. Where your mouse goes shows where your attention goes. Eye tracking studies prove mouse position correlates with gaze direction. Microsoft is essentially eye tracking every Windows 11 user without eye tracking hardware. Emotional state. Smooth, confident movements suggest calmness. Erratic, jerky movements suggest stress. Long dwell times suggest interest or difficulty. Your mouse movements are a window into your psychological state. Cognitive load. Microsoft can tell when you're struggling, bored, focused, or distracted. Decision-making patterns. How long you hesitate reveals confidence in your choices, whether you comparison shop or impulse buy, all visible in mouse data. This isn't just advertising data. This is psychological profiling, cognitive modeling, behavioral prediction. Microsoft is doing it to 400 million people without telling them. Lisa writes a blog post explaining the implications. It gets 2 million views in 3 days. People start to understand this isn't just about ads. It's about Microsoft knowing how your mind works and selling that information to anyone who wants it. The corporate espionage nightmare. David Foster runs IT security for a Fortune 500 financial services company with 12,000 employees. When the story breaks, he realizes the implications. His employees use Windows 11. They access confidential financial data. They work on mergers and acquisitions. If Microsoft is tracking their mouse movements, what gets exposed? An analyst working on a confidential merger. Their mouse movements show which companies they're researching, how much time they spend on each, which financial metrics they examine closely. That data goes to Microsoft and 23 advertising partners who could potentially infer which merger is being planned and trade on that information. It's corporate espionage via mouse tracking. David immediately deploys a company-wide policy. Disable all Windows 11 news and widgets. Block the domains at the firewall. He starts planning migration to Linux for sensitive departments. This is an unacceptable security risk. Within 2 weeks of the disclosure, 60% of Fortune 500 companies implement similar restrictions. Some ban Windows 11 entirely. Microsoft loses enterprise credibility overnight. CIOs can't trust an operating system that spies on employees and shares data with advertising networks. The enterprise market is rejecting Windows 11 not because of features or performance, because of surveillance. Regular users discovering they're being watched. Amanda Richardson is a 34-year-old mom in Ohio who uses her Windows 11 laptop for basic tasks: email, Facebook, shopping, paying bills. She reads about the mouse tracking and thinks it can't be real. She Googles how to check and opens Windows Resource Monitor. She's shocked. Constant data transmission, thousands of packets per hour to Microsoft servers. She's been using this laptop for 8 months, every day, multiple hours. 8 months of mouse movements tracked and transmitted. Online banking. She moved her mouse over account balances and transactions. Microsoft logged all of it. Shopping. She browsed products, compared prices, hovered over items she considered but didn't buy. Medical information. She researched health symptoms. Microsoft knows her medical concerns. She feels violated, like someone watched over her shoulder for 8 months without her knowledge. She never agreed to this. She paid $900 for this laptop. She owns the hardware. But Microsoft is using it to spy on her and profit from her data. She's done with Windows. Her next computer is a Mac. Cost doesn't matter. Privacy matters. Microsoft lost her as a customer forever, not because of bugs, because they betrayed her trust. This pattern repeats millions of times. Parents worried about data collection on their kids, business owners concerned about trade secrets, writers worried about intellectual property, everyone realizing the computer they trusted is spying on them. Social media explodes with people discovering the tracking. Twitter threads with thousands of retweets, Reddit posts with tens of thousands of upvotes, YouTube videos with millions of views. Microsoft stays silent for 2 weeks. Finally, on March 8, 2025, Microsoft publishes a blog post clarifying data collection in Windows 11 widgets. Corporate speak, carefully worded. They admit they collect interaction data to improve user experience and personalize content. They claim it's anonymized. They say users can opt out. They don't mention mouse tracking specifically. They don't mention the 23 data sharing partners. They don't mention selling the data. They don't apologize. Privacy advocates call it gaslighting. The data isn't anonymized effectively. Research shows mouse movement patterns are unique enough to identify individuals, like fingerprints. Opting out doesn't work. Multiple users report disabling the newsfeed, but the tracking continues. The only way to stop it is to completely uninstall the widget system using PowerShell commands most users don't know exist. The regulation failures that let this happen. How did Microsoft get away with this? Jenny Morrison is a GDPR compliance consultant in Brussels. When the story breaks, she analyzes it against GDPR requirements. GDPR requires informed consent for data collection. Did Microsoft get it? No. The Windows 11 setup has a privacy settings page asking about diagnostic data and personalized ads. It doesn't mention mouse tracking. There was no informed consent. GDPR requires data minimization, collecting only what's necessary. Is mouse tracking necessary for showing news and weather? Obviously not. GDPR requires purpose limitation. Data collected for one purpose can't be used for another without consent. Microsoft claims they collect interaction data to improve the newsfeed, but they're sharing it with advertising networks. That's a different purpose. GDPR fines can be up to 4% of global annual revenue. Microsoft's revenue is $211 billion. 4% is $8.4 billion maximum fine. Jenny files a formal GDPR complaint with Ireland's Data Protection Commission. Within 3 weeks, authorities in Germany, France, Italy, Spain, and Poland file similar complaints. In the United States, there's no federal privacy law, only California's CCPA. The FTC could potentially act, but they're understaffed. Microsoft knew European regulators would be slow. They knew US regulators probably wouldn't act at all. They calculated profit from mouse tracking would exceed any eventual fines. The class action lawsuits starting to pile up. While regulators move slowly, lawyers move fast. On March 15, 2025, 3 weeks after the disclosure, the first class action lawsuit is filed. Daniels versus Microsoft Corporation. Northern California District Court. Lead plaintiff Robert Daniels bought a Windows 11 laptop in September 2024. He never consented to mouse tracking. The lawsuit alleges violations of California's Invasion of Privacy Act, Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, and unjust enrichment. It seeks class certification. Anyone who used Windows 11 newsfeed is a potential class member. That's potentially 200 million people. Damages request $5,000 per class member. That's $1 trillion total. Even a 1% settlement is $10 billion. Within 2 weeks, 4 more class actions are filed in New York, Texas, Illinois, and Washington. Microsoft will fight class certification. They'll argue the privacy policy covered this. They'll claim users consented. This will be years of litigation. But 5 major class actions filed within a month shows how serious this is. Microsoft's exposure is enormous. How Microsoft is trying to spin this. Microsoft's PR strategy becomes clear. They can't deny the tracking exists, so they reframe it. On March 22nd, Microsoft publishes How Windows Helps You Discover Content You Love. Pure spin. They explain the newsfeed uses advanced engagement analytics to understand what content resonates. They claim mouse tracking is essential for understanding preferences. They compare it to how websites track scrolling and clicks. Everyone does this. Normal industry practice. They emphasize benefits, better content recommendations, more relevant news, personalized weather. They frame surveillance as a feature. They announce new privacy controls, a dashboard to see your interaction data, options to download and delete it. But the new controls don't stop the tracking. They just let you see what's already collected. The tracking continues unless you completely disable the newsfeed. Tech journalists aren't buying it. The Verge, Microsoft's mouse tracking spin can't hide the privacy invasion. Ars Technica, why Microsoft's latest privacy theater changes nothing. But mainstream media is more receptive. CNN runs a segment repeating Microsoft's talking points. NBC frames it as a misunderstanding. Microsoft's PR machine is working to control the narrative. The performance impact nobody expected. The mouse tracking uses system resources. Robert Langley is a performance optimization specialist. He sets up two identical test machines, one with newsfeed enabled, one with it completely removed. He runs benchmarks. With tracking enabled, there's constant 2 to 4% CPU usage from newsexperiencehost.exe. When you're actually using the computer, that background usage means less power for your applications. During gaming, frame rates are 5 to 8% lower with tracking enabled. During video rendering, exports take 6% longer. During compilation, builds take 7% longer. The system with tracking disabled is measurably faster. RAM usage, an extra 100 to 150 MB constantly consumed. Network traffic, 500 MB to 1 GB per month just from tracking. Robert publishes his findings. Users confirm it. Gaming forums explode with people sharing how to remove it. PC optimization guides now include removing newsfeed as standard. Microsoft built spyware that makes your computer slower. You're paying the performance cost, so Microsoft can spy on you and profit. You're subsidizing your own surveillance. The workarounds Microsoft keeps breaking. As soon as users discover the tracking, they find ways to stop it. Tech forums fill with guides. Disable news and widgets in taskbar settings. That doesn't stop the tracking. The process still runs in background. Uninstall widgets using settings. Microsoft patches that out in the next update. Use PowerShell to completely remove it. That works, but most users don't know how. Use group policy. That works for Pro and Enterprise. Home Edition doesn't have group policy editor. Use registry edits. Microsoft re-enables it after major updates. Use third-party tools like O&O Shutup 10++. Microsoft's terms threaten to ban users who use unauthorized system modification. Use firewall rules to block tracking domains. Microsoft changes domains. It's cat and mouse. Microsoft keeps patching out workarounds. Users find new ones. The cycle continues. But users shouldn't have to become system administrators to protect their privacy on their own computers. You shouldn't need PowerShell skills to stop your OS from spying on you. The fact that Microsoft makes privacy this hard tells you everything about their priorities. They profit from tracking, so they make it as difficult as possible to disable. The enterprise revolt happening right now. Microsoft's biggest problem isn't consumers, it's enterprise customers. Companies pay billions for Windows licenses. Jackson Williams is CTO of a major healthcare provider with 40,000 employees across 200 hospitals. They use Windows 11 for everything: medical records, patient data, research. When the tracking story breaks, Jackson understands the implications. HIPAA violations. If mouse tracking logs reveal what patient records a nurse accessed, that's protected health information. Microsoft collecting it could be a HIPAA violation. His company could face millions in fines. If Microsoft shares tracking data with third parties and they misuse patient information, his company could be liable. If mouse tracking reveals what research his scientists are conducting, competitors could gain advantage. He forms a task force. They deploy system-wide policies to disable newsfeed. They find it continues despite policies. They escalate to Microsoft demanding guarantees. Microsoft sends template responses. The controls are inadequate. Jackson makes a decision. Full migration to Linux. 40,000 machines. Timeline, 18 months. Cost, $120 million. Microsoft just lost a $120 million customer. And Jackson isn't alone. Within 3 months, 5 major healthcare providers announce Linux migration plans. That's 180,000 Windows licenses, $50 million annual revenue, gone. Education institutions banning Windows 11. Universities are revolting too. Professor Catherine Walsh teaches computer science at a large state university with 50,000 students. All students get university-managed laptops with Windows 11. When the tracking story breaks, she brings it to the faculty senate. Universities have an ethical obligation to protect student privacy. If Windows 11 tracks mouse movements, it's tracking student research, what papers they write, what sources they use. That data goes to Microsoft and 23 advertising partners. Students didn't consent. She proposes banning Windows 11 on campus. Migrate to Linux for all university devices. The faculty senate debates it. Professor Walsh shows the code and demonstrates the tracking in real time. She asks, "Do we want advertising companies knowing what our students are researching?" The vote passes. The university will migrate to Ubuntu Linux. Cost, $30 million over 3 years. Other universities take notice. Within 2 months, 15 major universities announce similar plans. MIT, Stanford, Berkeley, University of Michigan, University of Texas. They're all moving away from Windows 11. Microsoft loses the education market. An entire generation will learn on Linux instead of Windows. Those students will become employees who prefer Linux, IT managers who deploy Linux, executives who choose Linux. Microsoft is losing the future because they couldn't resist tracking mouse movements. International governments banning it. Then governments start moving. Germany's Federal Office for Information Security issues a warning about Windows 11. They recommend government agencies avoid it. France's CNL opens an investigation and suggests government systems use alternatives. The Netherlands Ministry of Justice announces transition to open source. The UK's National Cybersecurity Centre updates guidance to classify Windows 11 newsfeed as a potential security risk. Government contracts are enormous. Germany has over 300,000 Windows licenses. France over 400,000. China bans Windows 11 for government use entirely. The revelation confirms their suspicions. Western software companies build surveillance into their products. China accelerates development of Kylin OS, their domestic Linux distribution. Russia follows, promoting Astra Linux. India's government recommends domestic alternatives like Boss Linux. Microsoft is losing entire countries, markets with hundreds of millions of users, because they built mouse tracking into Windows. The geopolitical implications are massive. This accelerates the fracturing of the global technology ecosystem. Western companies can't be trusted with data. Microsoft helped create the movement to de-Americanize technology infrastructure. So what do you actually do if you're using Windows 11 right now? First, understand what's happening. Every time you move your mouse, there's a chance Microsoft is logging it. Where you go, what you look at, what you hover over, what you click. All of it potentially tracked. Second, check if you're affected. Open Task Manager. Look for newsexperiencehost.exe. If it's running, you're being tracked. Open Resource Monitor. Filter network activity by that process. If you see constant connections to Microsoft domains, your data is being transmitted right now. Third, decide your tolerance. Some people don't care about privacy. They figure everyone tracks everything anyway. If that's you, do nothing. But if you care about privacy, if you don't want Microsoft profiting from your behavior, if you don't want advertisers knowing your every move, you need to act. Fourth, stop the tracking. Easiest method. Right-click taskbar, click taskbar settings, toggle off news and interests. That stops the visible widget, but the background process may continue. Better method, open PowerShell as administrator. Run this command: get Apex package, web experience. Remove Apex package. That completely removes the newsfeed system. The tracking stops because the software is gone. Best method, switch to Linux. Seriously, if Microsoft violates your trust this badly, why keep using their software? Linux has gotten so good. Ubuntu, Linux Mint, Pop, OS. They're easy to use. They're free. They're fast. They don't spy on you. Most Windows applications have Linux alternatives, or run in web browsers, or work through compatibility layers like Wine. For most users, switching to Linux is easier than you think, and you'll never worry about Microsoft spying on you again.